Well, hi, I'm Austin, and I'm joined by a half dozen esteemed and very musically diverse colleagues. And we're just going to yammer about our stuff in the latest Counter-Strike Global Offensive music box called the Masterminds, which we were pulled together over the course of, I guess, several years. I'm the slacker because I delivered mine like 9 days ago. And the rest, I think, go back quite a ways. And so I figure we'll go around the circle, or it's going to look actually nothing like a circle on everybody's screen, and just talk through our stuff. But first, how's everybody doing? We good?
All right.
Doing good.
Doing all right.
This, of course, lives
Happy to
on
be
the
here.
internet forever. But the context of our recording it is that everybody's isolated and quarantined in their homes or respective space stations, although I guess you disabled your Zoom background. So everybody, our backgrounds are out now looking relatively similar to one another's.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll have to reevaluate if that's what we want as the space stations and or beaches or cathedrals or whatever reemerge in your Zoom through the course of this as you lose interest in me going on and on and on. So to sidestep that, what'd you say?
In the quarantine masterminds.
Yes, true. Yes, the isolated. So yeah, I figured we'll just go and we'll just go kind of alphabetically. Although it's funny because we're very sort of back of the alphabet heavy group here. I realized, and so. But Daniel, representing the spear point of this, why don't you just say a word or two about yourself? You've done like 50 of these things. So the Counter-Strike community, I think, is well versed in your work and love it a lot. But why don't you give us just a sense of who you are, and then specifically what you had going on here, and then we'll play it.
Yeah, well, my name's Daniel Sadowski. I've been composing for a very long time. Mostly games, some film stuff. But yeah, like I said, I've been working on these kits for probably, I think this is my 4th one that I've done. So it's been a really, really cool experience. I was one of the first ones to go out when it was sort of like an experiment, and they didn't really know if it was going to do good, but it obviously did amazing. And yeah, so I just I love games, and this particular kit that I did is one based on like martial arts because I'm a huge fan of that, of like the UFC and martial arts and stuff like that. So there's like, I think over 50 kits now is what I think Mike said. So yeah. After a while, you're like, okay, what can I do next? Because like every genre has been done, every idea. So it's like on this one, I just thought, there hasn't been one that's done where it's like implementing like martial arts and fighting and stuff into the actual music. So I just thought that would be a cool idea. So kind of blended all that together. And that's like the idea I had for this particular kit. So.
Yeah, yours have been pretty diverse. Like I remember hearing your very original one, and then I didn't realize in the interim you had done several more. And as just kind of my own curiosity, I was clicking through them and all over the map on this thing.
Yeah, I did the 8-bit kit one, and then the original Crimson Assault, which was like a play on the original Counter-Strike music that Mike did. I kind of got influence off of that and did like a spin with like dubstep and stuff. So, and then I had one called what is it called? Final Destination or something like that. And it was like a really like synth-based one. So yeah, I've done, it's the 4th one, so it's really cool.
Well, nice. Anything else you want to say about this before we share a bit of it?
No, just go ahead and play it, man.
All right. Well, for clarity's sake, this is I'm gonna put a little preface at the beginning, since we didn't actually explain, it was my failing, the sort of parameters of this gig, and the unique fact that we all had to write virtually, laser accurate, identically sort of mapped works, all following the same exact sort of prescription. And in every one of these cases, I'm sharing the main menu of the kit that was delivered. So just a little word there. So here's the main menu of Daniel. nice, dude. I love the sort of blatantly, for lack of a better way to put it, the lack of round robin in your sampled sort of sounds. So
Sure.
funny, that machine gun.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just
great.
really want to emphasize, hey, these are shots, da 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 da, you know. And actually, when I did the music at first, there weren't any sound effects in it at all. And then I kind of went back and I was like, man, something's missing from this, you know. So I started to go and just layer in all these punching sounds, these gunshots, and it really added like a whole new thing to it. I'm glad that I did it because it
I
came
like
out.
those key ops in there too.
Yeah, those are great.
Exactly. It was like go for broke, you know.
Yeah, that's
really
the thing.
fun, man.
It's so like unapologetic about what it is. You know what I mean? Like you're not trying to sneak in with something and then 2/3 of the way through we're going, oh, I kind of see what genre he's sort of winking at.
Yeah.
It's like right at it.
Yeah, and then just musically, there's like a little bit of hip hop beats in there, a little bit of techno, and then like some of these synthesizers and stuff like that. I'm really a fan of like all these ninja movies and stuff like that. And there's that one movie, it was called Ninja Assassin. I don't know if you guys heard of it, but it was kind of like the sleeper hit movie. It kind of bombed in the box office actually, but the film's really cool. It became like a cult classic. And just the whole look of that film and the vibe and the score, the soundtrack from that kind of influenced it as well. If you look at like the poster of that, that's where I got the idea for the art on mine. There's kind of a similar vibe there and stuff. And the soundtrack was really cool too, like a lot of modern synthesizers and stuff. So I was like watching that movie a lot. So yeah, you should check it out if you haven't seen it. It's cool.
It makes me wish that as part of these, we could also kind of sweep in and switch out the sound effects. Like it'd be hilarious if the actual guns in the game started triggering these kind of like kung fu strike type sounds instead of the normal.
That would be cool.
Just completely commit to it. Well, nice. Any other thoughts from anyone?
I really liked those kung fu sound effects. Like you mentioned that real quick, but like you had that sort of whoosh kick punch sound effect. It's very like fun. It really is kind of winking at everybody. It's sort of like just you got a real sense of humor with it. I appreciate that.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, I definitely appreciate that. It doesn't take itself too seriously, but I mean, like the production speaks for itself, though. I mean, like
For sure.
From a mix standpoint, it's like it's masterful. I mean,
That's the polish is
awesome, clean and open. So I think you have a really nice blend of like something that's not taking itself too seriously, but it's seriously delivered. So kudos.
not amateur at all.
Thank you.
Well, beautiful. Let's plow on. My old pal, Mr. Dren.
Howdy.
It's a neck and neck competition between you and Matt on most guitars displayed in the backdrop here. So, why don't you? Same thing. Give us just some backdrop and then on you and specifically here, and then we'll listen.
Sure. Yeah. So one is based on the soundtrack I had done for Gunman Taco Truck, which came out, I want to say in 2016 or so. It's an indie game, and it was a lot of fun to do that soundtrack because I basically kind of had free reign. It was a very simple concept that it was the apocalypse. Someone had accidentally nuked 7 cities in the United States, and there was nothing but mutants, and they were all wandering around the United States, and you had to drive your taco truck across the United States to get to Canada because they needed tacos in Canada. So we went through the United States. You were shooting mutants and chickens and cows, and then you'd stop to fuel up. You'd make tacos with everything that you shot along the way, and then you'd be able to buy gas and get to the next town. It was a pretty hilarious idea for a game. But my thinking on it was, this is mariachi music, but let's assume in the apocalypse that all the instruments aren't available. Tubas all got blown up, and there aren't a whole lot of acoustic basses or guitarons or anything like that. So lots of good electric guitars that are all put through crappy little amplifiers. They use battery power amps and stuck them in air filters and did all sorts of crazy things with the miking of all those guitars to try and get them to sound like everyone was in some kind of, garage trying to make a band. And then we recorded live violin, trumpet, and percussion and drums. So we had done that for the game, and then Mike and I were talking about doing more kits for CSGO. I had been on that original group that did the first ones with Austin and Daniel back whenever that was, and
It was a long time
so
ago.
we had talked. It was like 2014.
Yeah, I think 13, 14.
Maybe 15, 13. Yeah, it's been a while. So it was actually a couple of years ago. Mike said, "Hey, yeah, get that taco truck thing together," and so I did. I remember it was right before GDC. Taco truck cues all edited down and ready to work, and then I never heard about it again until a couple weeks ago. So, in typical Valve time, I mean, I knew they were working on something big, which turned out to be Alex.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
I knew they were crunched. So, So anyway, then just out of the blue, surprise! Hey guys, we're doing this. Here it is. So that was kind of the back for this particular kit. It was all based around the Gunman taco truck legend.
Well, let's listen. I love it. So awesome. I wish I had. I'm glad I didn't know in advance the fact that you were doing all that to sort of make the bass and guitar and all that as sort of janky as possible. When I first heard it, I was like, wow, it's the weirdest sounding. Like, I don't know if there's something busted with the amp or it's like, I remember this thing kind of alarm belled about it, but I remember thinking, wonder what was going on with that. It didn't dawn on me that it was like this carefully crafted thing. Cause yeah, that's fun, man.
I just love how it's so fun and very lighthearted, because a lot of the kits, a lot of them can be pretty serious,
Right.
Really dark and aggressive, but it's like there's different people that play the game, and I just love that. It's just so much fun, man. It's just so much energy, man. It's a great job. It's awesome. Yeah.
I love the Barry sax in there. That's a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, I forgot to mention the Barry. Yeah, we had the Barry sax guy in there too.
Ted, they drop it on that, Dren?
It's super fun track. I love how gritty it is.
Not played on that. Oh, I'm sorry. What was the last comment?
Say again.
Tree.
Oh, it's true. I think you were talking over each other, and then Dren also kind of got all matrixy in that moment as well.
I was saying it was a super fun track, and I loved how gritty it was. I loved the tones, the guitar tones. It just strikes the right tone, Definitely could see people like,
Cool, thanks.
having a great time, playing, jamming out to that thing. It's awesome.
Yeah, it definitely has that quality of fun too, which is so important because sometimes, people want something real serious, but this is clearly just all about fun, which I love.
Right. Yeah, the early comments I've seen on YouTube is that this would be the MVP track would be a great troll track.
I was going to bring that up. Yeah, one of the things that for anyone who watches this who doesn't realize how it works, if you get one of these kits and you're like the MVP of a given match, it sort of forces all the other players to hear your kit's sort of anthem. And so it sort of incentivizes you to write something a little outlandish, because then everybody else has to hear this sort of bizarre little thing as your own version of kind of talking smack. And I think that's such a brilliant little design idea, and for especially one like this. Or there was our mutual friend and colleague Lenny Moore did one a few years ago that was like, also it was like this almost funk. I mean, to be blunt, it kind of sounds like porn music, and it's the most hilarious thing for that context, especially. So yeah, love that. Awesome. Well, let's forge on. Unless anyone else had any other burning insights into the model of mariachi trumpet that they just so admire.
Very cool, man.
Thank you. Yeah, the trumpet player hated me after
we all love you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Matt.
Yes.
Grill.
Okay. Well, thank you. I mean, thank you, Austin, for sort of hosting this whole thing. It's really, really an amazing thing. I think, like all of you, I was super excited to do this because it was so creatively open. I mean, you could kind of just do what you want, and so it took me a minute to figure out what my approach would be. But just like any other game. Really, the idea is to sort of enrich the gameplay experience and tell the story, kind of, underscore what's happening and try and get into the emotional space that the player is doing, which sometimes is a challenging thing if it's a multiplayer type game, because it's not as narrative driven. But so in order to try to help tell the story, I had to figure out, well, what's the story, right? And after playing the game for a while, I was like, you know what, this is a Western. Right. So it was a perfect opportunity for me to fulfill my fantasy of doing kind of an homage to Morricone, so I had never had an opportunity to do that. So I went the sort of spaghetti Western route. And then I needed to figure out, so what is the story? And it turns out that the story is, I'm a badass and I'm going to come kick your ass. Right. And that's enough of a story for me. So what I did was I started writing some things. I actually I wanted to write some melodies, but you've as Austin was saying at the beginning, there's a bunch of widgets you kind of have to make out of the music. So I had to make something that was kind of malleable, but I still wanted to do melodies so that I could sort of tell a story. So the first melody that I wrote, I think of as swagger, right? And you just picture anytime Clint Eastwood walks into a town, or Clint Bajakian, but probably Clint Eastwood walks into a town and it's dusty, and so there's this sort of swagger vibe, and that's what I was going for. And then the second half of this main theme is really about perseverance and resolve, and I'm going to win, more kind of victorious. And it's also a little bit more actiony and thinky, but the whole thing has a fair amount of space in it. I mean, they're all pretty much acoustic instruments that are close mic'd. Except, of course, for I took a 5-string bass and I put piccolo bass strings on it, and that's my Barry guitar. But pretty much everything else is like a close mic thing. Acoustic instruments that are sort of, from around the world that I just mic'd up real close and got interesting sounds. And then the only other thing that I thought was kind of interesting was I played cello on this piece, but I played it with brushes, right? So I beat up my cello. And I think my friends at the conservatory might have some words about that, but I like the way my little percussion kit sounded, and so yeah, that's basically the background on this piece, and I'm super psyched to be part of this illustrious group. So,
well, that's a hell of a setup. Let's listen. Nice, man. Sorry to cut it down right as you're shifting gears. I wanted to get a little taste of that.
That's all fine. I get it. Everyone will just have to download the pack in order.
Yeah, exactly.
There you go.
I'll have links below on all of this, plus everybody's websites and all that stuff. So, but nice. Those guitars, that's got a good sound out of that. It worked for me. I loved it.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's cool.
Cool, man.
Yeah, it really just pulls you in, man. Like I feel like I'm in a Western for real.
Perfect. Thank you.
Sucks you in completely.
Yeah, that's a
Oh,
genuine
man.
article for sure. Absolutely love those flavors. Takes you right there to that spaghetti western. I love it.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Quality
That
of
works for
production
me.
on
Yeah,
spot.
the whistling and all that. Yeah, it was a good little.
Yeah, that was this guy right here, which actually I bought this when I was in Austin.
Ah, cool.
Nice.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and then I got actually some of this jangle was from this the kalimba that
Oh, cool.
Nice.
I wondered actually. I wouldn't have guessed it was from a kalimba.
That has an setting.
What kind of microphone did you record those with?
those I recorded with a pair of Earthworks, the SR30s.
Nice.
All right.
Yeah, it got a great sound, man.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
interesting how it's sort of in a way it's the diametric opposite of like where we started with Daniel, which is very driven by this like immaculate sort of synth production, and you basically just stuck a microphone in front of a bunch of things you got lying around the room and arrived at the same thing through kind of the opposite means in a way.
Yeah, thanks. Well, so a lot of what I do, I tend to, as you could tell by all the instruments around me, I tend to lean towards more acoustic stuff. I mean, synths are great, but my own personal aesthetic tends to be pretty driven by like acoustic sounds and particularly close mic stuff. But also just because Spaghetti Western was all about taking kind of these disparate elements from wherever they could find them and just, making a really unique sound that's very kind of strident and simple, and I was really inspired by that, and so that definitely influenced this track.
Well, you crushed it.
Cool.
Yeah, great stuff.
Yeah, nice. Any other thoughts? Shall we proceed? Silence will be golden in this case. So Sam,
Yo.
take it away. Tell us about you. Tell us about this.
Yeah, so I'm a composer, as you might have guessed. I mostly work in the video game realm. I do some other stuff as well. And I think, like many of you, this was an opportunity to fulfill some kind of weird fantasy. And I spend most of my days in the sort of the modern, soundtrack world. But I have a weird fantasy about being like a banging EDM funk artist. And I don't really write EDM or dance or disco stuff very often. But that this was a chance to try it out. I like a lot of that stuff. This pack in general was like inspired by a lot of like early 90s kind of sounds. So there's some like Sonic the Hedgehog in there. There's some like Toe Jam and Earl, like Mega Man stuff in there. But I like didn't want to do like an 8-bit thing because that had been done awesome already. But there was definitely that influence in there. And some of it is just like, I don't know what this reference is pointing to, but some of it just kind of reminds me of like that like early 90s like Nickelodeon sitcom music with like really like weird, super dry, funky synths. And yeah, so I mean, like many of you, I just wanted to write something that was like different than my normal catalog and also just like really fun and get the player, hyped up and happy and, psyched to be playing the game and psyched to win.
All right, here we go. Oh, dude, that's so.
That's so
nice.
cool.
So
That's so good, man.
That
some
felt like
Bernie
I,
Worrell funkadelic shit happening there. I loved it.
I felt like I had. It was like I had. I don't even know how to describe what just happened to me over the last 90 seconds, but it almost felt like I had 4 different sort of tracks that I was kind of clicking at regular intervals, and they're all reasonably similar to each other. So it wasn't like this schizophrenic playlist, but there's so much conversation happening amongst all the different sounds in there that it felt like I was kind of clicking over to the next station, you know, or the next track in the list, and then coming back and then forward again and then back again, moving all around. That was really, that must have taken forever.
Yeah, I can hear how much time went into that just from listening to it. It was just so detailed. Really impressive.
Oh, Sam is super fast, man. That took him 15 minutes. Yeah, amazing job, Sam. That was a really, really awesome sounding track, and really captures that fun that we were talking about before. And I think you nailed it, man. Sounds great.
Yeah, I just wanted to get up and dance, man. I'll be real. No, that's a great energy, man. Really, it's awesome.
And it's funny that you prefaced with that, like Nickelodeon early 90s, because having planted that in my ear, I was laughing the whole time, thinking that is absolutely what this is. That sound, that sort of like daytime TV, but like, which is just beautifully executed, kind of like wildly outside the Counter-Strike norm too.
Yeah.
Oh man. Well, that was a palate cleanser. I think that's going to be my new ringtone, I think.
It's cool. Yeah, awesome job, man.
Yeah, it's great stuff.
Super cool.
Beautiful. Well, let's just keep on rolling. That was awesome. Tim.
Yes.
Take it away.
Okay, well, super excited to be here with you guys, and really happy to get to join the Valve family on this gig. This is my first project with Valve and for Counter-Strike, and been working in music for media forever, you know, films and video games and the concert hall, all kinds of stuff. And so for this gig, I think like for you folks, it was just like an opportunity to you know, dig through my bag of tricks and find my favorite tricks and kind of smash them together. So I was inspired to go for this kind of film noir, you know, mid 20th century thriller movie kind of aesthetic, and combine that with some more contemporary sounds and sort of bring that into today's sound world, but still really get a feeling of, you know, Alfred Hitchcock or the Twilight Zone or what have you. So it was a lot of fun to put together, and super excited to see it out there.
Well, that's exciting. Here we go. Nice, dude.
Thank you.
Very
Yeah, good stuff.
that feeling, that kind of vertigo
Psycho, yeah.
yeah.
I love
Yeah, a little vertiginous psycho Marcato strings in there, chomping away and swirling around. That was super fun to create that
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah,
very like I love the stream of consciousness vibe to it. It's kind of all
right.
it's you know, I think it speaks to that, just that level of suspense, especially in that kind of old world way of, you know, scoring something. I mean, nowadays it's like all very like, you know, modern scores, it's all just like pulses for 10 minutes. And those
Yeah.
old world scores, it was just like so much changing and so much being
Yeah.
captured that really well. Like I'd love to hear that.
It's interesting to hear it also in the context of like where you have some kind of a steady tempo and you've got that stuff underneath it that's giving it, you know, some propulsion. Because normally that style of writing is so like ramping tempos, and you know it's got a very elaborate tempo meter map usually. It's interesting to hear it kind of in this dimension with the steady pulsations. It was really
Yeah, that's an interesting insight. Yeah, it was certainly fun to sort of bring that sort of edgy pulse of the more modern palette and combine it with this more kind of flowing dimension of that old school kind of sound. So yeah.
Yeah, it works, and it gives the player like a good sense of adventure. It brings you to like another world. It's kind of, it transports you nicely. I thought it was very successful.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah.
Very creative,
Yeah, I think it's definitely one of the more unique of the bunch for sure. You know, like really different, and I think that's just really needed. You know, just to take more chances like that and stuff. And the rhythms and textures are out of this world, Tim.
Oh, thanks a lot, Daniel.
I'm listening to it. I'm kind of jealous of those textures, man.
Hey, listen, I'm wishing that I had thrown in some you know, kick-ass sound effects like you've got in yours too.
I guess in yours it would have been like screams and knife
Right.
blades or something.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. It's funny also, again, to just, with all of these, I do that sort of mental simulation of like that plays, and then I go charging into a map to hope to, when it's me playing, hope to survive for more than 35 seconds. And it's like, what a wildly different experience this tees up from the rest. So much are like, I'm gonna go kick ass, and yours is like, I might discover Pandora's box and change it.
I'm gonna go deep inside the human psychology.
Yeah,
and see what is the meaning of any of this? Does any of this exist at all?
Yeah, exactly. Which is that's a good strategy on certain maps. So
cool.
Yeah. Well, awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, I love that these are all just no two are even like
not even
close to stepping on each other. It's like 7 islands just sort of with
very
massive oceans in between.
That's an excellent point, and I just at this point, I'm curious, did anybody who's on this call know what anybody else did? Because I didn't.
No.
Nope, no idea.
I don't think so.
It's kind of amazing, and I think actually like that's a really cool thing that Mike did, was to just sort of let us all do our own kind of creative thing. And I think it's so interesting that we all had completely different approaches, completely different things that we wanted to explore. So, you know, kudos to Mike for sort of letting creative people be creative. I think
it's fun to see them all together, like just back to back to back. It's really cool. Gives you like a, you know,
totally
transportational, you know, experience.
I think that was part of Mike's MO, is to intentionally group together disparate folks that if they're just told you be you, it's like good casting, you know. I think we all naturally slot into something very individual and very likely to just not dovetail with anybody else. So yeah, definitely credit to him.
Nice.
So our next our duo of the group, Tree and Ben, why don't you guys, however you want to sort of divide that up amongst the two of you, I know that you did this a while ago, just tell us, about yourselves individually, but then
why don't
also
you start,
as a
Tree?
partnership.
Yeah, for sure. Tree, you go ahead.
Yeah, well, for this one, we wanted to sort of create like a majestic motif in a dark setting. We went pretty straight down the line, like giving it the action score. It's funny hearing all of these kind of more fun approaches, where it's not taking itself as seriously. We're going right at it, like, action drama kind of vibes. So, we've got some propulsive tension in there to support, gameplay and some jarring angular hits and all that. The palette is like pretty much a hybrid of like orchestral elements, big brass, ostinato strings, and then, some like a battery of drums. I'm set up here for live ensemble recording, and I've got like tons and tons of big drums and things. I think I even like brought in, a little example of like some of the crazy stuff that we beat on, and then the idea was basically just to do that and meld it with, some grinding synths, and just to put you in this dark world, and, with the memorable sort of majestic melody. And maybe I'll let Ben elaborate further.
Yeah, it's funny. Like, so I mean, a little bit about me. So I mostly exist in the TV scoring world, and I sort of came up working with Tree as his assistant, and so like we sort of meld our styles together pretty well. I do remember at the time that we did this. It was right around the time I got this Prophet 6 right here. So it's just all over that thing. Oh my God. I was just like jamming it into it. And there's so many cool pulses and all this stuff that I think that really like opened up the world. This is actually my first analog synth is this one, which is a great one to start with.
Yeah, no
and
kidding.
So I was just like, oh man.
Not a lot of people
so
get a Cadillac at age 16.
I know, man. Well, it was just it opened up a whole world, because there's stuff you can do with VSTs and soft synths. There's a lot of really cool stuff, and it's like the customizability is great. But on the other side of it, having something where you're restricted, having something where like you might adjust it and then it might never be exactly the same, is something really special that I really loved. And yeah, so we threw it into this and had a lot of fun with it.
And backpedaling just a sec, Tree, you didn't give us any sort of rundown on just who you are prior to doing this, just for due diligence, the A&E biography in capsule summary of Tree Adams.
Well, I've been writing music for film and TV primarily for a long time. Have done some video game work as well. I currently have like several television shows, like ongoing series that I do. I do like the 100, which is like a science fiction kind of vibe, big sort of drama sound, sort of similar to what we're doing here. I do NCIS New Orleans. I was doing Californication for years when that was on, a lot of that. And then video game wise, I guess, I've done, I did this thing for Sony PlayStation called Massive Action Game, MAG. That was kind of fun. And, I've done a few other things in the video game world, and I'm doing more of it now, and really enjoy it. Doing a lot of work with like orchestral music and ensemble recording, and, spent many years in a rock band traveling. That's my background.
Love it. No, I appreciate that. I just didn't want to skip past that. Well, let's listen to you, as you said, going right at it. nice. That's that feels like the like I remember Daniel saying when he did his first one, it was sort of like thinking in terms of the I don't remember how you phrased it, but sort of like the traditional Counter-Strike experience of, you know, bravura, modern action, and sort of varying that. And this is the only one that's sort of even remotely in that territory, although I feel like it's even more sort of serious.
It's pretty serious, yeah.
Yeah, there's some high stakes shit going on.
Yeah, don't mess with us, man.
Yeah, exactly.
It cracks me up like when I put that next to like the taco truck or like
totally.
martial arts. Like I love it. I love
it's so
love
funny.
the disparity of that.
I feel like when I'm thinking back and like
got a really nice sort of, well, it's very cinematic, right, and very serious, but it's also got a lot of twists and turns. It kind of takes you on a journey, which I think will give it a lot of staying power, because it's, you know, it continues to be interesting, and kind of think you know where it's at. It sort of takes a turn somewhere else and goes somewhere else that's interesting. So nice work on that. It's really great.
Yeah.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I feel like I just was really excited to be writing game music. Like, it's just like, you know, and so it just sounds like game music. A lot of you guys, I'm hearing you saying like, you know, I want to do something completely different. I had all this stuff that was like this and like something that isn't in my catalog. And for me, it was just like, well, this is the different thing. Like, let's do it. Let's go 1000% at it and just run at this action game music.
That's great. Yeah, I love how there's like something for everybody. You know, there's going to be somebody who like, you know, at 20 million people, there's going to be tons of people who's like, that's exactly what I want. I want the epic score.
Yeah.
I'm like playing a movie. And I think that's so awesome.
And I want to meet the person who hears Gunman taco truck music and says, that's what I was looking for.
Yeah, I that's definitely the cloth I'm cut from. I love the super, like, I mean, I love it all. It's why I love working in this industry. I mean, and I love that there's even things that exist that like this, where these very different approaches to the same exact thing can all kind of coexist and complement each other and bolster each other's sort of unique qualities by making them stand out all the more than they even would otherwise. But as a gamer, I'm definitely like, I love the subversive kind of weirdness that, whether it's the Morricone or the taco truck, like, I think left to my own devices, that's the where I find myself going after years of consuming piles of you know, the opposite of that, and feeling like I don't know how to find myself there, because then I hear it and I'm like, oh man, that's really cool, that like what you guys did. I hear that and I think, I don't know that I could have done that, because I've spent so long off in the weirdness that it's like it's like I forgot my native language, and I just only speak this new language now. So hats off, good.
And I was going to say that the production again, man, just impeccable. You know, like very
thanks, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
You want to go buy it right now, for real. Like, man.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, it's great.
I'm glad you set up also at the beginning to that end. To Daniel's point, I'm glad you mentioned how much you spend playing that percussion in there, and that's not sequenced, or at least some or most of it is not sequenced, because I found myself paying a lot closer attention to all the different kind of, you know, whether it's like a little riff that just kind of comes and goes, or the underlying sort of driving motor of it, but that really sparked for me on this. I listened to it before we recorded this, but that percussion didn't jump out to me the way it did after hearing this, and then I had this whole new appreciation for. There's a lot of nuance there, and there's actually a lot of sort of very precise production of those elements, which makes sense knowing now what you told us.
Yeah.
It's interesting that we've done it in this format where we talk about it and then we play the music,
right?
Because it enables you to tune into certain things. Because initially I thought that perhaps we would play the piece first and then talk about it. But I kind of like this format where, you know, by prefacing it with something, you're forced to kind of like tune into certain elements, or it just, you get there quicker. Understand?
Yeah.
Sure. It's nice to hear it through like the composer's ears too, right? like such a cool perspective to hear from, to kind of hear it through your ears for the first time.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's a great summary, because I tend to be a melody guy. I tend to like fixate so much on melody in things that large amounts of all this really intricate work going on rhythmically, I sometimes, if I'm giving it a quick listen, I might just file that under, yes, I remember there was a lot of rhythmic interest, but it's like, that's very different than dialing right into that and actually really appreciating all that's going on there. And so, yeah, you're kind of, everyone's sort of steering the ears of everybody else in ways that pulls us out of our default, which is, I didn't even plan on that. That wasn't kind of the goal. It's an emergent bonus, I guess. But any other thoughts, or shall I bring us to a very anticlimactic conclusion?
Oh no!
I'm being modest.
No, it's just funny. This is weird, and it's weird even amongst the diversity here. So we'll see how it plays. But just for, I guess, due diligence, again, I'm Austin. I've been doing games and film and stuff, overwhelmingly games, the last 8-9 years. This is my second run at this thing, and much like the first one I did, and like everybody else here, really, it was, okay, what haven't I done? And also, what will someone never ask me to do? Like, what would be sort of so ludicrous in its premise that I could never possibly get away with it on an actual sort of normal project? And so, like, the last one that I did was kind of this like psychotic tango of sorts, where I just thought, what if I just go absolutely ballistic with this sort of angular leaping around mandolin and guitar and trumpets and flutes and stuff. And so for this one, I have this friend who's a singer. He's a tenor who's got a big YouTube channel named Peter Hollins. And he's just this amazing singer, does a lot of that kind of Glee Club a cappella type stuff. And I thought it'd be fun to feature a voice like that. And then I just started experimenting. And before I knew it, I had a wall of synths. And then for some reason, a lot of Irish stuff started making its way into there. And I have no explanation for any of it, but here's what happened. Idea.
Nice.
Yeah, that's my bit of
really fun, man.
That was awesome.
Tin Whistle player or a sample?
Yep. No, there's a musician I work with. She's actually in Florida, and she's primarily an oboe player. Kristen Nagus is her name, and
nice.
I've used her as, she plays all the winds. She plays like 150 instruments, everything from you know, oboe, flute, clarinet, etc., to all manner of penny whistles and recorders and duduk and blah blah blah. So I'm always looking for an I basically don't have any projects anymore that don't feature her somewhere.
Great stuff. Yeah.
So yeah,
It's amazing. I think this one of all of them, this one kind of has a little bit of every genre. Like if you had to tell someone what genre this one was, you'd say, well, no, I can't do that. And so congratulations, because it still sounds kind of like this cohesive one thing, but it draws from basically everything.
Well, that's kind, man. I think, it's that's always the goal, you know. I don't know. It's just one of those things. It's like an axe. At some point, I just needed the grind of, you know, if I start to feel like, oh, it's pretty evenly slotting into this genre, what can I sort of sprinkle over the top, like just in general in my work. But this one is just an excuse to be ridiculous, because this could never work in any other context, you know.
It's somehow both jaunty and treacherous. I don't know. It's a weird. Somehow you've walked that line, jaunty and treacherous.
I wish I'd called it that.
There's like humor in it and also chaos, which is like,
Yeah.
Wow.
it all comes together. It all works. Like, I love
Fun and danger.
this moment of like a very like, you know, kind of diatonic chord progression, and then it just goes off in some crazy place and then brings it back home. It's really cool.
Well, the good thing about it is there's so much to listen to. Like a number of the ones that we've listened to today have this, but this one has it, you know, very much, is that if people are using this as their main menu music, there's so much to listen to in there. I mean, I think that you could hear that many, many times and continue to sort of discover new ways of kind of new things in it. You know, it's got a lot of surprises.
I echo that about everybody else's for sure. I'm flattered you think so, but I definitely agree. As a group, if you heard this time and again, which any reasonable Counter-Strike players, you know, very potentially going to hear it a million times, it's always nice when it kind of speaks to you in new ways. And it's, you know, you're playing at night, so you're just kind of tired at the end of the day. Certain frequencies pop differently for you, and you're like, oh wow, there's a whole bunch of stuff going on that I kind of didn't notice when I was playing 12 hours ago. And yeah, credit to you all for exploring, I guess, in earnest in the writing.
I think this whole experience has been like going to a street fair and just getting to sample like all these awesome foods over here, like the funnel cakes over here and the pie over there, and you know, it's been a really cool experience just getting to hear all these.
The taco truck is legitimately part of that analogy.
Basically, you just have to get them all, you know?
That's right.
Gotta have them.
Yeah, I'm really glad they bundled them together. That's very cool that people are getting this grab bag.
Yeah.
I dig it.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thanks guys for hanging and doing group hive mind like this. And I'm gonna
thanks again for organizing it. That was
thank you.
Man, thanks for
it's my privilege. It's just we live in a world of Zoom, so everything I'm doing now is like, how can Zoom integrate with this? Nah, for real, I'm going to put links to everything below, everybody's website and the relevant Counter-Strike links. And everyone go enjoy the rest of their Sunday.
Maybe we should give a collective thank you to Mike Moransky too, just for all this.
Yeah. Thanks, Mike.
Mike
is great.
Our overlord at my beautiful.
It was really great to meet you all and to work with all of you. Really a privilege.
Yeah, likewise.
Likewise.
Be well, gentlemen.